I'd love to switch gears completely and just start nerding out about revenue operations or wealth of knowledge here. So let's start with like the basics. What's the definition of RevOps? Like, how did that term come to be, and how do you think about that definition?
Okay, I'm going to answer you in like 5 different ways. I think first, we were, again, people were doing RevOps before there was a term for it, right? Some of the best companies were doing that. And when we first started Go Nimbly, we taglined it unifying the business stack, because we didn't have the words for RevOps. And what we were really focused on was breaking down whatever silos you could insert. There's a lot of emphasis right now on people silos when you read about revenue operations, but it's not just that. It's integrations that aren't all the way there. It's products that are not, it's data structures and integrations that aren't working. It's definitely people, but it's also terms. It's like one team calls something leads and the other team calls it different. It's all this kind of what I call internal bullshit that gets in the way of your customer's experience and how they can interact with you. So if we flip it and do a metaphor, let's say we're making a movie and we've got directors and we've got actors, right? Our actors are our go-to-market team. They're the ones that are creating the experience for the audience, and they're the ones that are interacting with the audience. Well, the everybody in the background, that's RevOps, right? We've got directors, we've got people writing scripts, we've got folks making sure that they're well set up, we've got the scenes, we've got, I don't know enough about movies, but I think you get the gist. We're setting it up, right? And we're just making sure that the go-to-market team or the actors can show up and create that really great experience. So that shows up in a lot of ways. But I think the key thing here is we don't want one team worrying about sales and one team worrying about marketing and one team worried about CS, because ultimately that's not how the customer interacts with you. If you don't have anybody worried about all of it, then you have all the handoff problems that you've probably seen between marketing and SDRs and SDRs and AEs and AEs and CSMs, where the customer goes, why am I repeating myself? So like, that's the stuff that we're really obsessing about fixing.
I really love that movie analogy. It's really, that's a good one. How do you think
clunky, but
No, it was good. It's like a good way to think about kind of the distinction there. Like, what are those key functions of a RevOps team? Like if keep going with the movie analogy, if you have people writing script and directing and whatever, like what does that look like for a RevOps team? What are those kind of like key functions? I don't know if you think of it as a function or a goal, but how do you break that down for us?
Okay, this is where I'll say there is theory and there is, how it actually plays out. And so let's talk a little theory and say there are capabilities that we expect from a RevOps team. And that is sort of operations and strategy. There's enablement. There's technical, the actual tools work. And so you can think about those. Sometimes when you're big enough, you have different departments even within RevOps that are doing that, right? You have your tools or your systems team, and you have your enabled team. Sometimes you even have your strategy and operations team that are separate. And you can think about it like that. I've also seen companies that this might seem against RevOps, but I don't really care if you also split it instead of function by funnel. Like it's okay if you still have folks that are focused on marketing, sales, and CS, as long as they're rolling up to a leader and rolling up to a team that cares about making it all holistic and that they're meeting often and doing the work together. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be that, and there's pros and cons to both structure. If you can think about the ones that are, marketing, sales, CS, they tend to have more depth. They tend to be closer to the go-to-market teams. They didn't have that relationship stays closer, but they tend to have less specialty in things like BI and analytics. That's the other team I forgot. They tend to like not go in depth as much there. So, there's how does this team work and what am I looking for? I actually borrow a lot from other teams. So if we think about you probably have a lot of people in here that are product teams. It's like, all right, great. Does this RevOps team have a roadmap? And like often the answer is no. And product teams know it's really hard to keep up a roadmap. Like it just is. It becomes stale really quickly. But I think that is so key to knowing how to structure your team. If your roadmap is a lot of tactical tools, then great. A lot of analysts. If RevOps isn't owning analytics, which I think they should, but if they're not owning analytics, and if they're maybe not even owning systems, then great. I don't need to hire those functions. If you don't have any big hairy project coming up in the next year, I don't have to hire architects. And so I think sometimes we try to make this like one size fits all when I think about like how do you set up a RevOps team. But if you don't know what you're building for, and I don't have an outcome or a roadmap, then I can't tell you who to hire and how to structure that. So I leave it a little bit more ambiguous than, I don't know, if you go read my content, we're pretty strong with it, but having lived it and like having been in different companies, it looks different at all of our customers. And we don't go in and say, hey, this is exactly how you have to do it. We mitigate any choice that they've made. Every system has, its downfall.